So we're going to be together for the next 2 hours. We are going to talk about what's happening on the planet. I'm going to introduce myself just slightly for the people who are new, who haven't been here before, and give you a little glimpse into why I'm here and what I do. But we are here from the Flower of Life Center for Human Evolution. We are a volunteer organization that was founded to raise consciousness on the planet. That is our mission. And we create that mission in so many different ways. We have our free events here in Michigan. We travel out of state and do things, but we have our expo, if you're not familiar, our Awaken Empowered Expo that we do in Detroit. It's an amazing expression of all areas of consciousness. People who are up and coming in the movement, who have really groundbreaking and uplifting things to share. And that's really what sets us apart from a lot of other conferences, organizations, and things that you might see in the movement around disclosure. Not that there's any judgment there, but really when you come to an event or you participate in something that we're doing from a volunteer standpoint, the goal is to always leave you feeling better, to expose people to the positive things that are actually happening on the planet, because they are happening, regardless of what you see in the mainstream media, and to help you get into the right vibe to be a part of that movement, which I know if you're here and you're listening online, you already are in many ways. But we also have a youth movement that we work with, Conscious Youth, which we bring kids age 9 to 18 together on a remote call every month. We have a weekend in wizardry day camp for kids who are exploring these topics, who have spiritual gifts and abilities. And we actually are having our first parent webcast next week, Wednesday. And it is a free online forum for parents who have kids this age who might be struggling with things or have questions. I called it a forum, and that was by design. We were meant to have a forum. We were going to do this in more of a conversational type of setting, but the response to this webcast was overwhelming. We have, I think, over 100 people and still coming in. And that's a testimony to the need out there for these parents of kids who are coming up in this movement. And to me, a really good sign that these kids are on the planet and there are humans that they have chosen as parents, teachers, guardians who want to explore these topics and help them. Because I believe that I'm getting a little off track, but I believe that there's soul contracts there, right? These conscious kids are coming to the planet and choosing the parents, the teachers, the settings to break apart and mold back together into something that actually works on our planet. Because right now, as all of you know, we're not exactly supporting these children in the way that they need. So that's another big effort that we have going on. And if you wish to join us in any way, shape, or form, any capacity, we're happy to have you. We can find roles for everyone who's got a talent to share in this movement. So feel free to shoot us an email if you're interested. All right, so my role in the organization, I work with Ethan Fox and oversee everything that we do, but I also have a mission of my own that I came into very abruptly later in life. And I'm here as an intuitive channel for those of you who haven't been here before or who don't know me. Not at all what I planned to do with my life. I was a stay-at-home mom in a very mainstream world, was in the business world, got a college degree. But through a struggle with chronic pain in my life, became aware of a gift that I've had in many other lives here on this planet that was meant to emerge again when the time was right. And I was very resistant of this gift. I began to meditate solely for the purpose of healing my body, and fell into a communication with extra dimensionals and beings that shocked the hell out of me, because I was not a believer in this at all. I wasn't in this conversation. I grew up very Catholic, Italian, did not have anyone in my world that was talking about this kind of stuff, but took a complete turn, a complete shift in my life. And the universe broke my life down. I mean, completely obliterated it from what I knew to where I am today. And the reason I really want to hone in on that is because I do want to share a little bit about what I think we're walking into in 2019 and what we're feeling right now on the planet. But for me personally, when I began to meditate, again, not for any spiritual purpose, but solely for physical benefit, I began to shift my vibration. I mean, everything in my life began to change. My perception of everything in my life began to change. And all of a sudden, I found myself in this world where I was questioning everything in my reality. And as I was questioning it, it was starting to crumble beneath my feet and fall apart. The marriage that I was in at that time couldn't have sustained this transition that I have walked through to be where I am today. The life that I led couldn't have come with me in the form that it was. And it was not an easy time in my life because I was trying to hold on to things that were safe and that felt really comfortable to me. And I think a lot of us, because of the programming and the societal expectations that have been placed on us as children, have a lot of fear around breaking those paradigms when we come into the awakening that things aren't going right. And so I really had to test those waters. I had to step through the fear of the unknown and what the neighbors were going to think and what, my family was going to think and how was I going to support myself and all of this crazy stuff. But what I do know is that if you go there, the universe will have your back and completely and totally support you. It takes full surrender, and it takes being present with the things that are falling away and reacting to them in neutrality, which isn't a beautiful process. I didn't go through this transition gracefully, and I don't think we're meant to be perfect as humans. But at the same time, I've learned, it's like I've flexed that faith muscle so many times in my life walking through transition that I find it a lot easier now. And to a degree, I think that's where we're heading on the planet. So I want to first clarify who I work with and what we're going to do today, and then we'll talk about the planet. What I found in my life was I was connecting to a very special guide. His name was Jacob. He was here to awaken me to my gifts and abilities. He took me on a journey that I cannot possibly explain in 2 hours, but I did heal myself completely of chronic pain, not because Jacob told me what to do or how to do it, but because I was entering a new dimension, a new world in which I was magnetizing the people, the places, the things, the experiences, the books, the knowledge, the wisdom, whatever I needed to change my life. And it wasn't just in my physical body. It was, I changed my diet. I changed my meditation practice. I don't know. I explored every topic under the sun. I went on that eternal quest that many of us do. And as I did, the things began to show up. As they did, I broadened my connection to so many other beings and guides, like extraterrestrials, which I didn't even believe in when they started talking to me. So I had a really hard time with that. The Pleiadians came to me first, so I do channel the Pleiadians, and now I channel so many other beings and collectives like the Arcturians, the Council of Light, and Andromedans, Atlanteans, the Dolphins, but even archangels like Gabriel, Michael, Metatron, and when I do private session, it's just across the board. I'm a trance channel, and what that means is my consciousness kind of steps outside of my body. My mind is not involved in the transmission. To some degree, every channel has to involve the mind because the mind is the process that forms the words, right, and brings the transmission together. But I find myself like an observer. Okay, so when I begin to channel, which I will do here, we'll do a live channeling. We'll bring in whatever guides and beings are best suited for all of us who've gathered here as well as out there. I kind of feel myself over there in the corner of the room. I can hear what's going on, and sometimes I want to try to control what's going on, but at the same time, I can't possibly do that. And I'm typically, like all humans, judging what's going on. So those who know me really well know that every time I step away from a channeled transmission, I think, that was really awful. Like, that didn't make any sense at all. And I think it's because my brain is trying to grasp something that my mind is involved in elsewhere. So to me, it sounds like a big jumbled mess. But of course, when I listen back, right, it's not that way at all. And the best thing I ever could have done was listen back to my channeling. And there was a time when I couldn't do that. I just didn't want any part of it. You know, I was resistant. So we're going to get a taste of that today. And I'm going to catch everybody up on the messages if you haven't been on the YouTube channel watching what the guidance has been talking about. But you guys are all here to make this experience. It's a vibrational one. It's not just about the words. So your intentions, your questions, everything that you bring to this experience helps to craft the result. So consider yourself a part of that transmission. And when you receive channeled guidance, when you receive a channeled download, you're forever changed. You're forever changed. It's light, it's vibration, it's waveform, and it is going to work within you differently than the person sitting next to you. So everyone's going to walk away from this experience today out there and here with a different result, something that they need to apply in their lives. And what's really cool about the channel transmission is if you listen to it 3 months later on YouTube, you're going to pick up something completely different because your vibration has changed. And that vibration is alive. It's still vibrating on the recording. So every time you come back to a channel transmission, you're going to get something new that's going to affect where you are in your life at the moment. All right? So feel free to ask questions. We have a microphone. We'll pass it around for things that you just want to communicate about, whether it's channeling what's going on the planet. And then, of course, when we get to the channeling part, we'll have questions as well. You out there can type in the chat whatever questions you have, and Ethan will be on top of that. And we'll take them here in the room, okay? So as you are all here know, we're going through some pretty interesting, turbulent changes on the planet. I want to talk about what's going on from a couple of different viewpoints because there's so many things happening. A lot of times as humans, we like to make it about one thing. What's that one thing? You know, the solar flash and the event, and it's just like this one thing. But I don't see it as one thing. I see it as a myriad of energetic changes and orchestration that's going on that's causing so much of what we see on the planet right now. And so the big topic has been the poles. All right, and so I know those of you who follow my channeled transmissions, back in 2018, the guides were bringing, I think it was actually January or February of 2018, the guides were bringing in messages about the pole shift. And all of the transmissions that they were sharing were talking about the energetics of the pole shift, meaning that it wasn't a physical thing happening at that time, but the energies within Gaia were beginning to align differently to support a pole shift. And we were already going to begin to feel that. Okay, so I equate this back to my original message. My vibration changed. All right, and I know all of you know this. If your vibration changes, all of a sudden the glue between you and the things in your life starts to break apart and loosen up. Okay, if you raise your vibration, everything around you has to match that in order to be present in your field, whether it be friendships, partnerships, work, the way that you receive money, financial resource, your health, so many different things, right? Think about this going on within the earth, okay? Because earth is a living, breathing being. And just like we experience these vibrational shifts, she experiences them too. And they become the catalyst to how physical things then follow that match the new vibration she has moved to. So what happened in 2018 is we were really feeling this kind of up and down, this spike and drop of her energy as that shift was taking place. And this wasn't just with the poles, the poles. This was the grid system, which I talk about a lot. There's a new energetic grid system that's stabilizing on Gaia. There are meridians within her, like we have meridians within us. There are energy centers. We know there are portals and stargates and codes and all of these things, okay? So all those things were very unstable. They were changing, they were stabilizing, and as they did, we plug into that electromagnetically, okay? And that's why so many of the transmissions that I brought in 2018 were focused on physical body stuff, especially adrenals, exhaustion, where we were feeling depleted or foggy. And, we were bringing a lot of physical stuff up in the body because it's like a clearing process, okay? So we're getting rid of the stuff that the glue was holding on to, and we're moving energy. And when we're moving energy, we have physical results of that. I mean, we know this, okay? We have a healing, an energetic healing. We might feel sleepy for a couple of days. I've had them before where I felt a little nauseous after an energetic healing because everything in your body is shifting to that new vibration. It's releasing things that don't need to be there anymore. It's opening space for new things to come in. And that takes us down a little bit in the physical body. And that's what a lot of us experienced in 2018. It was just this constant kind of draining of our energy and moving things around and having to rest to integrate it all. And I certainly experienced it myself. I have an inner circle community on Facebook where a lot of people are active in posting about their experiences. I can tell you across the board, when I was feeling it, almost everyone in that group was posting about it as well. So it was certainly a theme, okay, that we experienced. Well, now here we are walking into 2019, and we're already seeing, even in the mainstream news, that the poles are physically changing, okay? So it was kind of like the Earth templating in this new dimensional space, and the poles are now pulling into the new position for the Earth to magnetically adjust to everything that's gone on within her. And collectively, I think this is really where 2019 is going to show us on the planet a lot of this same thing. Okay, so it gets complicated, and I'm really hoping the guides are going to come in today, which I know they will, and explain this to us in a more, technical way so we understand. But I'm going to give you my layman's perception of this. Okay, so the thing that gets tricky, and I think we all know this if you're here and you're following my work, is we have two different dimensional realities operating on the Earth at the same time. So we see this more and more as we expand our consciousness and raise our vibration. We are seeing the split between the people in our lives who aren't really willing to go there. No judgment here, just saying. This is something that we all are probably noticing. When we awaken, okay, when we raise our vibration, that is a multi-dimensional experience. And what that means is we begin to perceive multiple perspectives. And that's where the questioning comes from. Okay, so you don't start to question your reality unless you believe that there can possibly be another one. So those of us who are more, I'd say, in the fifth dimensional vibration, consider multiple perspectives. We're constantly questioning our reality. We're going, where can I improve? Where can I be better? What do I need to know? Is this true? Is this not true? Right? What do I need to bring in to support myself? How do I serve the Earth? The difference between that and what's going on in the third dimension is there's a lack of willingness to see another perception. How many people see this on the planet, right? We have people who are stuck in the matrix, the job, right? The government, the taxes, the money, right? And there's no opportunity that's just how it is, right? That's just how it is. That's the difference between the fifth dimension and the third dimension, okay? Multiple perspectives versus someone who's not willing to perceive another perspective. Now, what the guides are saying is there's no difference in vibration between those two dimensions, that all beings on the planet are vibrating at the same speed. So what's the difference? The difference is consciousness. The difference is willingness to go. I don't believe it's because those people that are in the third dimension that we judge so much haven't had awakenings, haven't had realizations. They're just shutting them down quicker than what other people are on the planet, right? And I remember myself doing that to a degree. Could that be true? Could that have just happened? No, that just didn't happen, right? So I think that we're going into a time on the planet where awakening is happening regardless of the way we see people accepting it. And it's the question of, are you going to accept a multiple perspective to get outside of that range of who you've been before, right? Or are you not? But as I've mentioned many times in these transmissions, those people that are still in the third dimension, no judgment. And we all have timelines, some of us to a degree, that exist in that dimension, or we wouldn't have people in our lives that we're associating with that have that more limited dimensional access. They're still a part of this collective. We are vibrating stronger as a one than ever before, and that's what I think this whole energetic pole shift prepared us for. Okay, we had been separated in our energy, right? It's just been about me. We feel the difference now, don't we, on the planet? So many people are like, it's not about me, it's about us, right? I want to serve. I feel like I want to do something to help the planet. It's because we're energetically now more connected as well. And so there's this push-pull that I see, okay? And one of the examples I brought up, I was having dinner with some really good friends last week. And I said, you know, one of the big examples of this is free energy. You know, we know free energy technology is possible. I mean, how many people have come to present free energy as a tool, but we still haven't seen it adopted on this planet and held as something that's a reality. Well, I think that is reminiscent of that energetic push-pull that we have going on, because we are all connected as a one. And for us to hold, to stick like the glue, these new things, we have to consider that the entire planet is involved, okay? But don't get discouraged by that, because I think the good news is we have reached a tipping point with this new grid, all right? Another significant message that I'm going to remind everyone that came in 2018 was that a new grid was stabilized here. It's a multi-dimensional grid. It's connected to the universe. The earth was segmented from universal support, from universal connection. That's why we were all stuck in that third dimensional web of, right, repeating timelines and stuff. That's now shifting. And that's good news. And of course, we see signs of that as well. But remember, going back to the original message, now we're looking at the physical ramifications or changes of an energetic shift that went on in 2018. From my perspective, and we'll let the guides give theirs, I really think it's going to be focused in financial. And the reason that the guides are telling this to me is that finance, money, currency, has actually become our source. Okay, so source energy has been limited in its definition for humans as something physical, as something monetary, as something that comes to support us in that way. Well, if source energy and the definition of source energy has to change, right, to really bring in all of these new things, then we're looking at some shifts in the financial markets and the way that we source money. Now, I've seen it in my private sessions. Some people who are really anchored in the fifth dimension are losing the job, or the job's falling away, and there's this immediate, you know, fear, because it's dilemma, like, how am I going to be able to make this shift? Am I going to be able to support myself? And the guides are really quick to say, remember, you are source energy. You know, you don't come here to work to receive something. It's your divine birthright to source energy. We've just put all these limitations and definitions on it in the third dimension. So if you can be patient and in neutral with what's falling away, really putting currency, creative energy and currency into that new aspect of the self, and it doesn't have to be completely known. It doesn't even have to be something that's important and big for humanity. Something really that just brings you joy, that's your innate self, right, that you want to express in the world. You're going to start drawing, okay, that currency again. The opportunities are going to show themselves. The people, the places, the things, the experiences that took me on the healing journey take you on the journey of source and resource, right? Because what this new grid vibrates as is a bridge to God, which doesn't rely on time, amounts of money for amounts of hours, right? Work, there's no measurement there. Where the old grid is based on measurement. It's why we have hierarchies on the planet, right? Some people are worth more because they have a degree, and other people are worth less because they don't, and they don't have the same opportunities here. Like, that's all banished in this new grid. Right? The new grid is simply sourcing for who you're becoming. And I think that the big difference between who we were and who we're becoming is causing some stopping point with us, because that's what we're feeling. We're in this weird space between who we were before and who we're becoming, and trusting that path. But I can tell you, I've seen it so many times in the work that I do with clients, in my own life, in the life of volunteers that we have here in Flower of Life. That transition will work itself out, and it will happen. Because if you sourced before, you're going to source again. And if you're vibrating in that new grid, the way you sourced before isn't going to stick to who you are, because it doesn't fit anymore there. Okay. I want to bring time into the equation, and feel free to raise, I'm talking really fast, feel free to raise your hand if you have questions. Because time's been an issue too, and I've had this message from a lot of people, is time speeding up? Feels like time is speeding up, like you don't have as much time, right? And really, the way we've defined time is so different from what time truly is. We create time, but the speed of vibration on this planet is really what you're feeling. So it's kind of like we're taking this new energy and applying it with old concepts, or we're trying to constrain it into our old ways of being. And so what I've noticed, it kind of started for me back in December, like before Christmas. I noticed this high vibrational field come in. It was like visceral to touch, to step into. My meditation, really in one breath, I could tune outside of me into this field and just feel this amazing wave of energy. And that's really the essence of what's present, that's connecting us back as a one, back as source. And that energy moves really fast. And so if we're not really deliberate in how we're tuning into that and how we're utilizing that, it can feel like, oh my gosh, we can't keep up. We can't keep up, right? Time's moving too fast, time's moving too fast. So try to challenge that in your life a little bit, and remember that you're the creator of time, and simply intend that whatever you need to do today is going to get done in the allotted time that you have in your day, and really try to relax around time. And what you might notice is this speed of vibration can actually assist you in getting more done in less time, because I've seen that actually in my own practice, in my own work. I'm accomplishing far more in less physical time than what was required for me 2 years ago. So that's a big shift I think we're seeing on the planet with time. And as that energy comes in, we have to also recognize that we're still integrating a lot of information. Okay, so that field that we step into outside of the body, where we get that wave and that bliss, that's all information. That's the Akash. So this pole shift is really all about opening up dimensional access. So we are actually being flooded by, inundated by Akashic information right now, which is a positive thing. It's actually a really good thing. But sometimes, again, our physical bodies can go down because we are integrating so much information. And 2019, I think, is a similar year, not to bring in discouraging news, but I think if you're willing to slow down and rest when your body's telling you to slow down and rest, you're going to utilize this energy far better than if you're trying to keep up with the speed of perceived time that is actually false. Right? So pushing up against that to allow your body to rest. I just brought in a new, those of you who do my Inner Circle channeled courses, I just launched a new one that will start February the 4th, and it's called Exploring Truth. And I thought, well, that's really interesting. And I got a lot of information about why, and it was because of this Akashic opening, this field that we're now tapping into. And we know when we perceive multiple perceptions, we have multiple perceptions, we can be inundated by so much stuff, right? Well, the Pleiadians said this over here, but, you know, so-and-so's saying that over there, and what about our government? And, well, what do we believe? right? It's not just about disclosure and different races and this history and the story. We have it conflicting in so many areas. It's also about our bodies, right? Like, what do we listen? How do we nourish ourselves? How do we detoxify our body? I mean, that in itself can be boggling, right? There is so much out there that pulls us into all these different activities. And this course in particular, and a lot of the messages and writings I've already downloaded, are directing humans into understanding there are multiple truths, right? Here we are fighting over one truth. Like, this is the thing everyone needs to believe. When we simply let go of that activity and allow humans to be where they're at, everyone's going to naturally gravitate to the things that they need to pull all of that back together as a one. And so I still see this unique singular ability for us to care for our bodies, to care for our consciousness, to activate ourselves in completely separate ways, unique ways. And I actually had a question on my Facebook page this past week about meditation. Someone said, how do you meditate? I'm having trouble meditating. And I said, man, in session, the guides will bring in different practices for everybody. Some people are more active meditators. Some people are more passive meditators. It's just different and unique. And I think that this Akashic field is like so abundant for us that we get lost in trying to prove the truth and find out what's right for us so much that we stall ourselves from using it in a way that is complementary to our bodies, our health, our consciousness. And so I want to, reiterate this feeling of freedom around truth right now, that there's nobody that knows better than you. And when you feel that within, the people that need to share information with you are going to show up and they're going to resonate with you, right? You're just going to get that. The stuff that your body needs, your body's going to tell you, right? I know we have heavy metals and we have toxins and we have all these things on the planet, but it's the same thing when it comes to detox and food. The guides will say something different for everybody, right? I had a client recently who had some pretty heavy and serious addictions. And we're going into some lunar cycles right now. The eclipse coming up, and I think there's 3 major ones in the next 3 months. I think it's really beautiful to watch the way these planetary cycles assist exactly where we need, because what I think about lunar cycles based on my channeling is they actually bring all that discordant patterning to the surface. And we sometimes experience that as tension and anger, and we get a little edgy, but we don't know why. And it's a good time to go beneath all that tension and edginess and really see what's underneath it and utilize that to clear. Because I think that's why these are coming, to clear space within us, like Gaia's cleared space within her, and prepare to allow this Akashic field of abundance to support us. Same thing with spiritual gifts and abilities. These are continuing, as you know, to rise and activate. And I think we're going to see more and more of that. Telepathy is especially a big one. So where you are feeling doubtful in what you are receiving, it's really a time to blindly believe. And that blind belief helps you to discern. Because let's face it, if you can't go towards what's there with confidence and belief that it is there, you're never going to be able to tell the difference between what's there that's good and what's there that you really don't need. And that's what I see so much is for us to discern, we really have to go towards. We have to believe that it's there first, and then we have to sit in that energy and explore it. All right. Any questions about any of that? Anything that's come up personally for anyone? No? On the chat? Channeling questions, is it time? Okay. Well, I'll bring in one more message about physical, and then we'll just spend the rest of the time channeling. So remember, when these poles are shifting physically, there's a lot of elemental changes taking place within Gaia as well. These elements, okay, whether they are like iron, silver, gold, crystal, plants, right, nutrients, all of these things, they're multidimensional energies. They were seeded here and they were hybridized to suit us as humans, to assist us. So during this pole shift, I think it's really appropriate for us to gravitate to those things, but to also recognize that if our body's depleted and a mineral or a nutrient or something comes up that's really wonky for us in the body, that it might simply be the way that we're plugged into the shift in Gaia. Because our meridians plug into her, we have elements, right, within us. And one of the big ones that I heard about today when I was meditating and channeling is gold, monoatomic gold. And I think that if you're out there and you're taking that, or if that's something that resonates with you, might really help get you through the shift. The other recommendation that's been coming in, which I know is pretty basic, is tons of water. Like the guides have been saying quadruple, like triple, quadruple your water, because it's a carrier of information. And with this Akashic field that's opened up, we're integrating so much information that if we have water as a carrier, we'll better integrate that information. Okay, and I actually know some people who've been telling me they've been feeling really dehydrated lately, even though they're drinking a lot of water, and you think we're using a lot of water. You can notice the sea tides on Gaia too, right? The receding of the sea tides and things. The guides have told me that Gaia needs her own water during this time. So with the energetic shifts that's going on within her, she's utilizing that water that is upon her to integrate that energy. So I believe those sea tides, those oceans, whatever, that have receded are going to come back, I'm sure, later this year after she's gone through all of these turbulent physical transitions. All right. Questions? Thoughts? You guys are so quiet. They braved the snow and now they're quiet. All right, well, we'll start channeling. So we are here from Flower of Life, and we do these events. We offer them for free, but we do take donations. So we're going to pass a basket around. Do not at all feel as if you have to donate. It's truly just up to you. If you can, it helps us to pay for the venue, as well as to support our other activities that we have ongoing. So we're going to go ahead and do a trance-channeled transmission. We're going to invite in the guides to bring us a message that's best suited for everyone in the space. If you have trouble keeping up with the message, don't worry. Just sit, meditate, let it flow into your aura. It's just going to shift everything that you need today. We're also going to take questions. I know those who are online have already been posting in the chat, and we will get to as many of those questions as we can, but we will prioritize the people who are here in physical and pass around a mic. So just raise your hand. If you have a question for the guides, raise your hand, and we can ask that question today. And we are going to have a myriad of different beings and guides coming in and out. I'll always tell you who's here and who's speaking. All right. Sometimes we get processes and activations, and if we get those, I will tell everybody, they will tell everybody, how to sit, how to breathe, how to do all that stuff. All right? Okay. If you haven't been here before, I twitch a little bit when I channel. It's just the difference in energies between this density that we're in on the earth and the beings that are stepping forward to work through me. We're going to work with the Council today. We are the Council of Light, and as all of us come together in a 12th dimensional frequency, offering you more of that frequency to integrate, we are pleased to begin. There are many of us who have come through great transitions in our own star systems on planets that we reside on. And this is why we have chosen the assignment to come together as a one collective, monitoring and overseeing the universal grid system. Through that assignment, we have great knowledge of non-physical patterning and shifts that are taking place that will manifest physical experiences, not only for humans on the earth, but also for interdimensional beings and consciousness beyond Earth. Because we first remind you that similar to your human collective consciousness, The entire universe vibrates through a field of one. The earth is like a being within a race of many others that are exchanging information and being affected by the activities that take place upon her. And this is our greatest interest, is to not monitor for the sake of humanity because they are unable to create a reality of heaven on this planet, but to assist in the explanation of what's taking place that is beyond the physical sight of so many of you who notice that your earth is transitioning, but have chosen a more difficult experience to create. We remind you that that which you perceive is the energetic announcement to all things of its likeness. And that perception is such a value to how not only you create in your own singular experience, but to how all humans experience their collective reality. And so we begin at that creation. As many of you have been shifting into a higher vibrational field that Gaia is now accepting, we notice that as a crystallization has taken place of your chakras, you are far more sensitive in nature than what you have been previously. This is bringing your original technology, how you were created by multidimensional beings of light who grounded here to seed you, re-emerging on your planet. It is not only a crystallization of your DNA strands and your chakras that are taking place, but it is a full integration of your physical and light bodies that you are experiencing. This integration is taking place for several reasons, and we understand that there have been words exchanged about the shifting going on within the poles and meridians of Gaia. We come to explain this a bit differently than what you have heard previously. And we want to bring in the concept of dimensional reality and truly what it means to hold a dimension on a planet. Now, all of you are recognizing that there are shifting dimensional experiences taking place. You, as a holographic being, have timelines often that hold different dimensional realities. What that means is that they are either vibrating at a speed that is different, or they are connected elements, humans, soul contracts, experiences that have been co-created by humans that vibrate at a particular speed. And we'll give you an example. As you were birthed into your physical human families, there was a carbon-based DNA that called forth the connection that you now hold. And that carbon-based DNA is focused on the soul, it's focused on the physical. It brings in experiences, karmic lessons, and creative energies that support your more physical timelines. Those family members are still present in your reality, and they are a co-creative dimensional timeline. Even though you may vibrate at a higher speed, you feel, than family members that you have magnetized, there is a leveling of that speed. It is like taking the equation of all humans who are within a co-creative or collective experience and finding the average of those numbers. And that average becomes the dimension held of that experience. So even though you may have ascended beyond the third dimension in so many other co-creative experiences, you still may hold a timeline that is of a lower dimension than others. This is what's taking place planetarily. Because there are two forms of collective consciousness vibrating at the same time on your planet, there are pockets of consciousness that are forming at different dimensional speeds. This is not how it was intended for your planet to experience its reality, but is reminiscent of transition and how it takes place in the galactic universe. When transition is taking place, perhaps within your body, for example, even, pockets of consciousness begin to form. And as they form, they hold information. And as that information becomes blended with more of itself, of its cellular experience, of its cellular consciousness, the entire physical form, not unlike the planet, begins to change. As we have brought this message forward, we must give you the analogy of what the meaning of the poles holds for humanity in all of this dimensional shift. Because the poles are the glue between how Gaia finds herself in the multi-galactic universe, connecting to information. Gaia herself is beginning to move in her location within the universe to open up more dimensional access. The grid system within the universe is balanced energetically, but based on where planets and stars connect to that grid system is how collective consciousness to form. Think of a star system such as the Pleiades connecting into the universal grids. And perhaps the location that they connect in is a wide open space that allows a flow of information from so many other planets and star systems that they have access and knowledge beyond what humanity is able to receive. This would be a very desired location, would it not? And the Earth's poles are like the navigation tool that pulls the Earth into place magnetically in this grid based on what humanity has now achieved and is calling for. So in other words, humanity has become the essence of a fifth dimensional consciousness vibrating and ready to hold that dimension in a time-space reality that is not equal to that energy. So the physical pole realignment is actually anchoring the Earth into a new location in the universal multidimensional grid system to support what you've already asked for. To actually bring to humans what has been prepared for in their energetic structures, to allow the information to come to your planet to create new physical realities. So you see, this time on your planet is one that is positively patterned and aligned with the new Earth that so many of you have called for and visioned. But what you are feeling in the moment is the lack of anchoring of those poles in the position to hold the fifth dimension. And that is the impetus of what we see taking place in the next linear year in this collective, is that as these poles move and anchor into a new location in the universal grid system, the physical activities on your planet that can no longer resonate in that location must change and reconfigure to suit it better. Much of what we've talked about in previous transmissions about hierarchical structures is of great note in this transmission because those hierarchical structures rely on more physically dense vibrations and information. So as the Earth moves and in its location in the galactic universe, these hierarchical structures, these institutions that have been formed, must go through a transformation to energetically shift to their appropriate matching vibration. And as humans experience this, their consciousness will meet it at the level of its vibration as well. In other words, there are so many of you who are accepting of these changes, who know that regardless of how fearful or difficult it may feel when things are loosening from their structure around you, that what is to come is going to replace those in a way that is a better suited match. And if humanity can keep this perception as it goes through the next linear year, what we find is you will anchor quicker the replacement of the things that are now reorganizing. Now, there has been mention of your financial institutions, and we want to bring more light to this as well. In order to understand fully the changes that will take place within your financial institutions and your monetary frequencies, we want to discuss reptilian consciousness and bring that back into the equation. As we have spoken in the past, and as many of you know, there is a reptilian consciousness in many forms on your planet that is affecting your human reality and how you create. Much of this has been focused through the mind. Humans have been limited in the way that they perceive physical, only able to focus on physical, creating it in the same likeness of that focus. But because of these shifts and location change within Gaia, we believe that this reptilian energy, as it is a part of your human race and the entire design of connection that you have reforged, is being affected by this dimensional shift in a positive light. Where much of the wealth and resource has been distributed to a small number of people on the planet, more opportunities are coming to allow that wealth to be less distributed in an unequal fashion and open sourced in its ability to receive. But to get to that place, remember, this reptilian consciousness, and to some degree, even those humans who are not as advanced in their perception, are affecting the entire creative or co-creative experience. And to our perception of what we see formulating in your grid system as potentials, there will be some lag time between when the new currencies and this equilibrium are grounded and the turbulent change that you will experience on this planet. And the reason for this isn't that you are meant to suffer. The reason for this isn't that you haven't ascended to the degree that you must, and there is something that must be judged within you. Even, we would say, letting go of the need to bring to justice those who are responsible for the things you feel are causing this financial restriction, to our perception hold you back from its allowance. When we look at this potential financial turbulent system that is changing, we believe it's going to be very abundant in its opportunity, yet transient in its grounding. Many fluctuations will take place, and many transitions will be undergone until this new structure, we don't even want to call it financial. We wish to call it something other than that. It's an ability to source and resource as a human collective in the fifth dimension really shows up. Something else we want to bring to your attention about the next linear year is that there are significant planetary alignments that are coming to repattern the physical DNA. Because when you move positions within the grid system of the universe, your DNA must become activated in its crystalline state to hold the information and retain it that you are having access to. The patterning in the physical DNA is a very dense pattern, whether it be emotional patterning, physical patterning, diseases, abuses, all of these things are coming to the surface collectively for humanity to clear. What this allows is future generations to reap the benefits of what you're energetically grounding right now. And so we advise that you utilize these energies well by seeing what goes on within you based on the cosmic mirrors presented outside. Those things that are causing you the most disturbance in your day-to-day reality are signaling to your internal structure to fix what has been broken through time that you inherited from past generations. And if you can pay very close attention to what that signaling is, it will assist you in ways that not only accentuate your personal experience here, but assist the entire collective in how it is grounding new realities. Now, we wish to leave you with one final message, and then we are pleased to take questions. We understand that there is also an uprising on your planet around man-made technologies and their effects on the physical body, toxins, as well as waveform frequencies that are causing fear around physical disabilities. And these vibrations in particular are ones that must come up in this next linear year as well. You see, all that is being created here is in highest intent. If you desire more information as a conscious collective, the Akashic information and the access to that is magnetized to those that are vibrating in the fifth dimension. But those that are still vibrating in the third dimension are manifestors as well. And their desire for more information manifests in physical forms. And this is a part of the tug of war that you are seeing here on this planet. Quantity and abundance and seeding natural resources in order to institutionalize food is a more third-dimensional sourcing of a need that is present here from a perception that isn't aligned with humanity. But there are so many other activities that those in the fifth dimension are grounding to not replace, but to actually be the mirror reflection of a higher vibrational activity. So we want to talk about technology, and then we will answer questions. We do believe that this linear year 2019 will be a time of technological advancement, and the reason for that is the wide open access that is now possible on your planet to the Akashic field. Remember, this isn't just what happened in your linear past coming back to the planet, such as ancient Lemurian or Atlantean technologies and teachings, but also that which other races and star systems have designed and developed and are continuing to use in the present moment. Because the Akashic field is just that. It is a vibrating, living, breathing field that is sourcing everything that is needed in the moment. So what we believe is that humanity is walking through a very physically based energy coming from a barrage of non-physical information and integration of that. And although we don't see that being always the easy path, transition is something that humanity requires in order to become that enlightened star system and race again. We believe that as you walk through this time of access, that the more belief that you hold in the way that you receive messages around technology, physical and non-physical advancement, the more you will draw in the resources to support the sharing of those realizations. It has been our pleasure to be present here with you through this channel and this transmission, and all of us are standing ready to accept your questions.
We have some questions that came in beforehand. It feels like people with full-blown Alzheimer's aren't really conscious anymore. It's almost like they're all mostly just a human shell existing. Is their soul still occupying their human form, or does the soul leave to travel and continue their work as we do when sleeping, and are they really suffering?
We get Archangel Gabriel, and he's very pleased to step in. You see, humans that are on the planet are always embodying a soul vibration. In order for a physical form to ground here as human, a soul vibration is always present and accompanying that physical identity. We look at this disease as several different expressions of energy, because often what we find is humans like to define or diagnose very unique situations and lump them into the same category. So before we answer this question, we wish to explain that within that diagnosis or definition of Alzheimer's, there is a spectrum or a range of humans who are having so many different experiences, whether they be physical or non-physical. However, there is a common thread that we do wish to explain, and we have to address it both in physical and non-physical, because all of you who are here are integrating physical and non-physical as a collective. What that means is when there is a disease or a diagnosis such as this, it is important to look at both aspects of that healing. So first we would say, this is a DNA-based anomaly. When there is something connected to information, either access to information or linear memory, or access to present moment and what is taking place in the presence, there is something going on within the DNA that has broken the connection to earthly experience. So if there is a linear timeline and there is a human who is not able to recall its own linear timeline, it must be present elsewhere in another dimension that timeline does not exist. Because there is no space of nothingness in the universe. Consciousness is always present regardless of whether it shows up in your timeline. For example, there are some that are in what you call a human coma. And that human coma may seem as if there is no conscious recognition of that human to its present moment. But consciousness still exists. It is just elsewhere in a dimension that is opposite of what that presence is for you. And it is similar to what we see for this disease. It is not that the DNA has a difficult pattern to remember its presence so much as it is that there's been a disconnection of the DNA from the consciousness. And there are many reasons for this. We understand that, toxins in your environment have been pinpointed as one of the most significant reasons that humans experience this anomaly. And we agree the reason for that is the toxin is actually a vibration that isn't equal to what the crystalline DNA hold. So the separation of the DNA of the physical and non-physical becomes greater when there is dense information in the structure. This is why humans have a difficult time accessing their extrasensory abilities and gifts, because when they are toxic in the body or holding dense information, the DNA resists its ability to work together, focusing humans on what matches that density or toxin, which is typically physical information. But what we're saying happens in this case is the reverse. The space is created so much that at that point the soul has a choice to either tune into so much density or take the path of the crystalline DNA that has no connection point, no focal point in the current reality. So yes, we believe that in most cases, the consciousness is elsewhere, vibrating in a dimension that is not equal to the one that other humans are accessed. In addition, many of these humans in this collective are in very unstable dimensions. The reason for this is that when the crystalline and carbon DNA strands work together, they hold dimensional reality. It's a technology that humans were created in the likeness of, but when the DNA strands are so separate and a consciousness chooses one or the other, often it's trying to stabilize that relationship. It's trying very hard to pull it back together. And in those dimensions, we'll say, for example, the sixth dimension, the reality is not stable enough for that consciousness to exist full-time or present in its body. And when that instability takes place in dimension, it's very difficult to bring that consciousness back into its body. We know that humans have gone through a myriad of different technological and natural approaches to heal this, and we do believe that there are present on the planet many that can assist in this way. But remember, the physical and the non-physical DNA strands are meant to integrate, and the best way to do this is bringing higher vibration in to counteract the density that is present. Detoxification is something that is also recommended to create the space for how that information can come back together as one.
Having been a child growing up in the 60s and the 70s, it almost seems as though there was a vortex that opened up in the popular music at the time. I would speak to like the Beatles, David Bowie or whatever, that almost seemed like prophets of the time that sort of helped some of us get on our spiritual path. I wondered if you could speak to that.
Yes, we are the Council of Light, and we're pleased to answer this question. Many humans are aware that there are waves of volunteers, humans that have specific assignments to awaken the collective that come to the planet. And these volunteers come signed up to activate humanity in many different creative forms. Often the creative forms that are chosen are the ones that vibrate the most with the humans that are present or are needing that message. In other words, these waves of volunteer, although their intention is to awaken the masses, the best way to serve awakening of the masses is through another mass collective. So when we look at the time frame that you are speaking of, we believe there were souls that were present that were receiving those creative outlets that were a magnet to the message simply because they were the next wave of those volunteers, almost taking the hand or the record of those before them and bringing it through a unique transmission of light. There are so many on your planet in this time through transmissions of light, whether they be art or music, that are doing the same type of activity, but in different ways. So this vortex energy that you speak of was really an influx at the time of these wave of light beings, and chose sound or chose a creative modality that would attract the most humans that were also activated in the same assignment. Make sense?
How do the genetics and DNA of individuals affect the rest of the collective of humanity, and how it resonates the collective of people with the closest links via DNA? For example, family members. How do people who hold more light, like people who have healed and or evolved crystallize their DNA more to 5D frequencies, affect their fellow human beings in their reality on a collective consciousness level? Even if people aren't related via direct DNA, all humanity is linked via the collective human consciousness DNA, correct? What does it mean healing the genetic line, and what does it mean for people on a 3D level? Is it just a matter of frequencies on a consciousness dimensional level? When we go from 4D to 5D, is all the collective DNA of humanity going to change to that frequency? I wonder how the event is going to affect us all on a collective consciousness level, collective connection level. Whatever it will probably be amazing. I hope you understood these thoughts.
Yes, we are the Ninth Dimensional Pleiadian Collective, and we are pleased to speak to the DNA and what we see going on within humans. This is a complex topic because, of course, the DNA holds so much information and through time has been changed so much within your technology that what we see taking place right now is a reactivation and reassembly of those DNA strands. But we want to first start with the original design so that you understand what you have gotten away from. And then we'll explain what we see taking place on the planet within family members and how it affects the lineage of humanity. You see, when humans were created, there were beings of light of many races who were 12th dimensional in nature, choosing to ground here and seed humanity in the highest vibrational light and in the mimic of their own structure. When humanity was seeded and hybridized, it took the best characteristics of all of these beings and formed it in a one consciousness. Now, the DNA strands that you have, 12 physical carbon-based strands and 12 crystalline strands, were the original design. These DNA helix strands were intertwined, meaning that you were meant to have a physical experience on the earth while still accessing your universal gifts, abilities, and cosmic family energies to support that creative effort. Now, through time, that DNA, as humans became evolved, continued in its ability to connect. In other words, a sonic resonance between the crystalline helix strand combined with the carbon-based strand sent out a sound harmonic. And that sound harmonic channels through the heart. Many of you understand that there is a resonance that ties all of you telepathically to each other. The DNA is involved in that process. It is involved in that resonance. But through time, what happened was DNA became less connected to its crystalline double and separated, minimized into its physical strands. There's so much that happened here that we don't want to bring all of that story into this question. But for the sake of the question, we will say what we see today on most humans is 4 to 5 crystalline strands integrated with their carbon-based double. This is not all humans, but we would say many of you who are vibrating in the new grid, who are more fifth dimensionally focused, have actually integrated the carbon with the crystalline strand. Now, all of you are unique in your access to the DNA based on your free will. Some of you have accessed 7th to 9th dimensional crystalline strands and are able to bring them in. But remember, there's somewhat of a separation between your spiritual selves and what you're able to access in non-physical and how you apply it or implement it in physical. And when that happens, we have crystalline activation going on of the DNA without an integration of the carbon-based double. We find many humans are in this situation where their spiritual lives or their more conscious experience is separate of their day-to-day reality. And naturally, as you continue to evolve, there will be a blending of that. But the heart resonance is what we want to focus on, because what happens when your DNA becomes crystallized in this way is that the wave pattern of the resonance through the heart begins to raise. And there are messages of information from the DNA that are maintained within your aura. Many human healers who are able to observe the auric field of humans can read light language and symbols and signs within the auric field that are representative of this crystalline information. Well, if it is in your field, if it is in your aura, and you're blending that aura with another human, of course there is going to be an exchange of information. And this is why we are always quick to say, when you are living your life in abundance and peace and joy, this is the most active way that you can create change on the planet. If you so desire to be in rebellion of the things that you don't enjoy experiencing, simply live at your highest and fullest potential. And that rebellion shows up as the exchange of information through your aura. But it must affect the DNA. As these codes are transmitted, these light codes of information, another is receiving them, and their vibration must change. But what we really want to bring into this message is the concept of free will. So what you are seeing take place now on your planet is those that are in their free will or their sovereignty to choose to accept that information and expand their experience, and those who are not. So regardless of whether the information has been exchanged, there is an effect on the vibration, there's an effect on the DNA. But the soul has free will to choose whether or not it puts that information to use. Now, you've talked about patterning in the DNA, and this is a separate issue that we also want to address. When humans are born of a physical mother and father, the coding within the water of the womb imprints within your physical DNA a set or a criteria of experiences that you knew you came to transmute on behalf of the collective. We know for some of you this may mean a disease like cancer, that within the physical DNA is an imprint of cancer. Now, whether you live that cancer experience out as a soul and transmute it in the body, or whether you simply raise your dimension above where that cancer imprint exists, you're changing the pattern. So in other words, you don't have to play out the stories that have been imprinted through the womb water of your mother through your DNA in physical in order to release them from the DNA so that they no longer exist for future generations. And there are a myriad of things taking place on the planet that we see are responsible for this activity. So again, we have to go back into your own linear journey. The way that you meet your physical experience has embedded within it the recipe to manifest the change you desire for yourself and for humanity. And it must have an effect. So if that pattern of cancer is transmuted by a mass, a critical mass of humans, the next wave of generation that comes through that womb water does not receive the imprint of it because it's not necessary for them to transmute. So imagine future generations coming in with crystalline DNA connected and integrated fully with their carbon-based DNA strand, with the imprinting being solely activative. This is what you are walking into as a collective we would see in future generations.
I seem to be having problems with sleep and itchy skin, and believe it's an ascension process, but if you could help with some tools to help me get through this process.
Yes. We are the Arcturians. We are eighth dimensional nature. We're pleased to answer this question. We see that many of you as humans have been disturbed in your sleep state, and this has much to do with the electromagnetic grids and the movement of the poles. You see, as electromagnetic beings, when there are spikes and drops in frequency, these will affect your structure. Of course, as has been previously mentioned in the spectrum of a disease, as a spectrum of humans within a collective, you are all reacting differently to the way that these changes are taking place. It is hard for us to speak to one solution, but we are going to speak to what we see as a common thread. Remember, right now you are balancing physical and non-physical and have to consider both aspects of this transition. For the Arcturians, we are recognizing of patterns as well in the grid system. We are healers and architects of changing those patterns. And when humans are going through turbulent transition, often the patterns that are difficult are the ones that are resisted and persist beyond the change. In other words, your sleep begins to become interrupted by something going on in the electromagnetic grids. And because the sleep is interrupted, you become so resistant around that experience that you begin to search for ways to change it. And as you do, you become ingrained in creating it bigger than what it was to begin with. And because of that, you now experience it in an elongated way. And we're not saying this as to shame or blame you. We just want humans to know how they are participants in this as well. It is not just the ascension symptoms and what's going on in the planet that are causing these physical changes. The way that humans perceive them and interact with them can be the impetus for creating them bigger or for letting them very peacefully leave the body. We want to bring in coexistence as a concept, because this is something that we believe not only applies to the lack of sleep, but also many physical symptoms that humans will experience in the body. You see, when you have something going on that is not to your liking in physicality, often it is your impetus to focus on that one thing that is going wrong. And as you do and place all of your focus there, you're strengthening the pattern of it simply by trying to change it. But when you take a breath and come to peace and understand that you can coexist with any transition that's going on within the physical field, that peace is actually a conscious technology that communicates at the cellular structure with what's happening in the moment. Okay? So when we resist something, we're sending a signal as well that there is something to resist. And as we do, the body responds. But if we decide to, in peace, coexist while this transition is taking place, we set the tone to peacefully allow it to release in our field, or while we're going through it, to find the comfort within it. And that's what we want to offer to humanity as these pole shifts continue to take place, that coexisting with what's going on as opposed to resisting what's going on is very important. Now, we also want to bring in the concept of elemental changes within Earth and depletions, because we recognize that there's so much going on elementally within Gaia that as humans, you are connected to all of that as well, and elemental changes are taking place within your own structure. Again, this means something different for every human. These elements that are changing are either in abundance in your structure and need to come to balance, or are depleting themselves so that the body makes adjustments to self-correct to something that is better than what it was. And we always perceive often as physical change, depletion being bad, when in reality, if we take something away, we might be strengthening something else. It is not unlike the detoxification process that many of you take on in the body. When you negate the physical dense food that you would, nutrient dense food that you would bring into the body and restrict it to a juice or even a fast of simply water, when you're doing this, you're negating the body of some vital nutrient elements, energy, and as you do, it's moving itself back into balance, you see? And this is an important thing to remember as you continue to walk this transition. Was a part of that question something that didn't get answered? I just want to make sure that we got it. Okay, all right, good.
Okay, next question. When does a baby develop the chakra system, and is it possible newborns are coming in with one big one that is all white?
Yeah, we're the Pleiadians. And yes, when infants are born, there is an innate structure in place that is equal to the first humans created, as we've told the story previously. The 12-strand DNA is crystallized and integrated, and the chakras are also crystallized. And what we see is that the separation of those chakras is really the way that the infant or the child is taught or programmed. The moment that an infant that is born, that is crystal, becomes aware of its separate identity, energetic changes are taking place to adapt to that separate identity. So in other words, when infants come in, their soul is in union with a crystal energy undisturbed. Their chakras are unified as one, and they hold a crystalline relationship within their DNA to their 12-strand double. This is how so many crystal children stay intact. It's not that they aren't exposed to the programming or the separate identity, but now your planet is beginning to hold that easier because it has, we'll say, reached a sonic vibration that is equal to keeping all of that intact. It's reassembling on you, but it's holding the frequency in infants. Now, further, we wish to say that the aura colors on some of these infants will be classified differently because of the way that their DNA and their crystallization shows up as unique connections to universal consciousness. You see, you understand, of course, there are cosmic families that you are meant to connect with and work with and hold information for. And some of those may be one and some may be numbered. But as these children come in, these crystallized children, they, not unlike the waves of consciousness we spoke about earlier, have very unique assignments and are here for very specific experiences. And because of that, their unison of DNA may call forth a specific color within their aura that is reminiscent of a universal collective or race of beings that they are here working with.
I would be very interested in hearing the guide's perspective on 5G technology that is being rolled out in many places in 2019.
We are the Pleiadian Collective, and we are pleased to answer this question. We know that humanity has reservations and has got a physical analogy of how this technology will be detrimental to your human structure. But we're here to give you some peace around the message of what we see coming in the future, because we first have to go into the analogy of why these situations present themselves on the earth. And going into the understanding of how there is a collective of humans vibrating in a third dimensional energy, and understanding that they are magnetizing and creating as a part of your collective, you can understand how this has manifested. Remember, everything that is manifested here is manifested in the intention of something good or positive. You are source creators. It is just oftentimes that the signal has been disturbed and the intention is manifesting something that is not in the highest and best, because humanity has not been focused outside of its physical, outside of its self. And we will reiterate the mass injection of information akashically that you are now accessing. You would not be accessing this Akashic information if you had not asked for it. If you had not desired for disclosure, if you had not desired to utilize your extrasensory gifts and abilities in a heightened way, if you had not desired to create a planet that was more universally connected, you would not have opened up the portals and shifted this earth to bring this Akashic knowledge and information in. Well, we see 5G representative, a mirror representative or likeness of that intention manifesting in a different timeline. You see, now in every manifestation of darkness is embedded light. Light and darkness go hand in hand in this reality. And the reason for that is that darkness is present as a mirror reflection to amplify the God within that you must remember you are. And the more that you remember that God within, the more you transmute the darkness and it becomes neutralized. So in the same way that happens, we believe that because 5G is present on your planet and humans are vibrating at a higher speed and that source energy is good and your intention is to live in a higher vibrational heaven on earth, there are technologies that will come in to suit and to minimize the effects of what this manifestation is proposed to bring. However, we think the best scenario, potentially, that we see is that the opening of this Akashic field is creating more awareness within humanity, more awakenings of consciousness. Although the speed is slowed and there is a tug of war or push-pull, we would say, between everything that's going on in this co-creative experience, there is a time-space lag between when that's showing up and how it becomes implemented. But we go back to the message of the council. One of the most significant things that we see manifested in linear year 2019 because of this access is cosmic and universal technologies grounding here into physical. This is good news for humanity, because as these ground and show up, the need to have a man-made information conductor is no longer necessary on the planet. So we believe that the time in which this technology is present will be short-lived. However, in the meantime, we advise that the earth has prepared everything for you as humans to transduce the energy through you that needs to be let go of and cleared. This is in the form, again, of elements that are present and hybridized here from star systems and planets beyond the earth, as well as herbs and plants that are present that are constantly hybridizing and renewing themselves to what you are sourcing. In other words, the natural energy of Earth is a conscious technology that's always responding to your highest and best. And as it responds, it is present and offered for you to work through any transitions and manifestations of discordance.
Thank you. I'm new to the path of energy healing, and ironically, I use the flower essences, but I keep getting messages of the violet flame and use that in my healing. And can you explain that? Because I have no idea what it means.
Yes, we get Saint Germain. The violet flame is just an energy that many ascended masters have come together to create that takes on the essence of a color that is really potent in its ability to change the soul vibration. The violet flame is a channeled energy that is a collective consciousness. We believe that there are so many that are continuing to participate in this violet flame that it is changing day by day. In other words, it is difficult for us to define or quantify, not unlike nature, that is constantly hybridizing to meet the requirements of humans, but it is more activative or cosmic in its energy. Those who are working with the violet flame hold the energy of the Ascended Master Collective and often connect to them as a channel or a conduit. And there is a match of that frequency. Think of so many Ascended Masters holding a similar intention to heal or clear the chakras and align them such that the karmic experience of the soul can better be understood. This violet flame is a transmission of wisdom that supports not only the healing of the physical body, because often what we find is the physical body is holding dense emotional patterns that have yet to clear from past traumas, not only in this linear life, but also that were passed on through generations. And as our intention comes together, this violet flame enables swift, energetic shifts to take place within the auric field, within the chakras, and within those blocked emotional energies or densities. Think of the violet flame as also a pathway to us and working with so many that come in to support unique aspects of transitional work with healers. We know, for example, that as we step into this room through this channel, you are all perceiving us a bit differently. And as we are multidimensional, we're able to work beyond time to assist whatever meaning you need to take away from this experience. In the same way, the violet flame is a pathway, an entry point to these ascended masters to enter the space and allow these, we'll say, coded activations or energetic transmissions to work at a very unique level within each human.
So like, I tend to find myself over-analyzing every single situation in my life. Like I can read too deeply into everything that it makes it seem kind of arbitrary, most of the things that I live in my day-to-day life, as well as meaningless, because I'm able to see beyond the things that would normally make someone feel like they're participating in the journey of life, I guess. Does that make sense?
Well, we participate in this way as a one collective. We're the Pleiadians. When you vibrate as a one collective, the meaning that you place in your singular experience takes a back seat in its potency to what the one experiences. And this is really what we believe that you're experiencing as a human. There are many who are like you, who have come more cosmically aligned, just like the crystal children that we have spoken of earlier, that hold a crystalline energy, which is essentially a remembrance of the one. It's a collective perception. It's not that the information or what you are perceiving is useless, so much as it is transient, we believe, that you're picking up on. This is what humans get very stuck in the midst of awakening, is that they are constantly trying to validate and perceive something as a concrete truth, when in fact, information is always vibrating in the field and changing. Every timeline that you've created beyond the ones that are still operating in physical in your linear timeline are going on and on through eternity. And because of that, when we look at the present moment becomes very transient as well. Anything that we experience as truth is subject to change based on our next perception. Now, we don't believe that this is a disadvantage in any way, shape, or form, but sometimes when this more collective vantage point, which is a oversoul activity, is present in a human, it can be very difficult to live on the earth, because humans who are very set in their physical, concrete, stagnant experience are not going to magnetize to the same level that you're perceiving your experience. And so quite simply, because you have this collective vision, you aren't stalled in any one interpretation of energy. And this collective perception allows you to notice that regardless of what's coming in for you now, that next moment might change that which you've experienced. This might also cause humans who have this type of perception to jump timelines very quickly. And what we mean by that is when you are that neutral in your energy, there is no pre-programmed definition of time that holds you to any one experience. And often the ability to astral travel and travel in the light body can be very complementary experiences to this type of perception. So there isn't something that's necessarily wrong with you or humans who have this ability. We just say they're more cosmically or oversoul connected in ways that they are collectively focused. Singularly, if you ground more into your experience and you're able to hold on or use this information as a, we'll say, present moment ability to create the next, you might find more stability in how you're not able to hold on to physical reality and how things might change for you very quickly.
Thank you.
I have been going through transformation for a long time, and I have discovered the more I detox, the more sensitive I get. Also, I am a single mother, and I raise a teenage son who has a really different energies. He's still very much dense and in the third dimension. So there is a very much a discord of energies, of my energies and his energies. And I have a very hard time to raise him and to figure out what I should allow him, what not to allow him. So can you give me an advice?
Yes,
Thank you.
We're very pleased in the Pleiadian Collective. Remember, every consciousness, every being that comes to the planet holds an intention. And we see pockets of consciousness, such as crystal children, for example, that come with similar intentions. Now, many of the teenagers on your planet, those who have come into those early adolescent years, are one of the collectives that we see preparing for a time of great advancement, especially technological advancement on your planet. But they've come with karma to serve, and they've especially come to play out the human story of what they are here to transmute. Most of these souls are looked at by the parents, the teachers, those that they have magnetized as their family members, as not performing in society very well, or not feeling as if they are creative in their energy, not having any specific goal. As a matter of fact, we find that they are some of the most resistant humans on the planet to living in societal norm. And because of that, that resistance is causing an energetic effect. So what if we were to tell you that there is a collective of adolescents on the planet whose greater purpose in the moment is to actually resist your pre-programmed societal expectations? And as they do that, they're causing so much frustration on the planet that they're beginning to become recognized as ones who will never create. Yet they are triggered, as we should say, all humans are triggered later in life to actually utilize the human story of what they are here to create. And we want to say that this collective in particular is similar to the last question, very oversoul active and very collectively focused. They are very extra sensitive and often find ways to tune completely out of their environment. This is why there is a heavy use of technology, even a heavy use of substance abuse in this group of adolescents, because they are finding patterns to tune out of what is overwhelmingly difficult for them to feel and accept. And to some degree, the way that their physical must be aligned to work within this energy isn't even a vision of theirs. It is so separate of what they need to do to operate in this physicality that they've completely let go of the desire to do it. But humans, all humans, come with ascension codes. These ascension codes are embedded within your structure, and they match the collective intention you came with. And as the planets revolve around the soul in that body, not unlike the poles are magnetizing a new place in the universal grid system, new experiences flood into that human's timeline. And what we believe with these humans is they are triggered much later in their adult life to actually awaken and ground some of the most advanced cosmic technologies and information systems that the planet has ever seen. Even, we would say, environmentally, the ability to transmute some of the very discordant toxins that have been prevalent on the planet in physical form are a part of their assignment. Okay, so dealing with that as a mother, we must resort to that soul contract and show you the contrast that you are providing a soul who is actually stepping into your shoes. You see, there's no mistake that many of these children in this age group have chosen more conscious parents or parents who are awakening in this time, not because they're meant to force that awakening on those adolescents, but because those adolescents are simply meant to observe and receive the benefit of how those humans are awakening. And so simply doing what you're doing, being who you are, is fulfilling the contract that you agreed to. Even though it's difficult to communicate, even though you may feel as if that child isn't serving its purpose, allowing it to be where it is, allowing him or her to be in the space that they are, very similar to the coexistence of something in the body, is really all that's required. Because as linear time goes on, what you will find is that they are going to be some of the most profound and significant light workers of our time.
I have found that once I stepped into learning in the light, I've learned lessons at a constant rate, and I'm a young teen, so I'm a part of that group. And I feel like after learning all these lessons, I'm at like a disconnect from the people around me. So it's hard to like relate and have conversation because I'm so not advanced, but I've learned so much. So I'm asking for advice to be able to put back and relate to the people around me who aren't as conscious as I am.
Yeah, so this is Archangel Gabriel, and the question we wish to ask you is, do you wish to relate anymore to those who are not seeing the same path as you, becomes the question. It is not as if there is a desire to suffer when this happens. You see, any time that you consider multiple perspectives and you change patterning of your soul and what lies within your DNA, there is going to be a new perception of every human in your environment. And it's not a judgment per se so much as it is a feeling of how that energetic match is still serving you or not. Now, often we see that friendships who are not advancing at the same rate as another human will stay connected to that human simply because they're meant to benefit from the story and the experience of that person that has ascended. And if that is what you're feeling, simply the love and joy of maintaining those relationships, our most simple advice to you is to live at that highest truth. Because if you suppress that which you are in order to maintain friendships or relationships that no longer vibrate with you, the only path that you affect is your own. But if you continue to vibrate high and express your truth in a very authentic and loving way, you affect your own path and all others in that path, you see. And we believe it's purposeful for humans to magnetize friendships as they go through these transitions, because in many ways it is the invitation of them to come along with you on that journey. Now, we know that there's always a concern about difficult topics or those experiences that aren't believed to be true by those humans who haven't experienced them. And to be frank, humans are wishing disclosure on a planet that humans have advanced to such a level that disclosure is taking place in every moment. So quite simply, what we find is when humans live in the truth of this disclosure, if it is talked about in ways that are very normal, then those who are having similar experiences are allowed the freedom to express them as well. So what you may not know or realize is that those who are still surrounding you as friends could be dipping their toe in the water of this higher collective vibration that many humans are receiving, but don't have the reference point to share it and to validate it within themselves. And perhaps you've come along at a time on their soul journey as a soulmate, a soul partner that was meant to usher them into that energy. And we know this feels like a responsibility, and we bring this to all humans in this time, that those who are still surrounding you, who are not vibrating in the same field, are some of the most important relationships that you maintain. It is not that you're meant to force your experiences on them or force experiences through them, but simply to show up in your authentic truth. And when you do that, the natural evolution of energy will carry the rest forward. You see? So these soul contracts that you have, they're energetic contracts. And every decision that you make to interact with these friendships or family members carries that energy into a new relationship. And in your authenticity, you are always setting the energetic tone for the best and loving results.
My question is, seeing the Earth is transitioning into the fifth dimension, from what I've listened to from other people and read, that some people in the third dimension are not going to want to make that transition. So, is it going to be just a spiritual transition, or is there going to be a physical transition? And so, what would happen to the people who don't make that transition? Are they going to be able to live in a fifth dimensional world?
Yes, we're the Council of Light. This is a very difficult question for us to answer because as vibrational beings, you are always changing your reality, yet we can give you the analogy of what we perceive currently based on your vibration. First, we wish to say that the split of the timelines has much to do with the way multiple perceptions are being accepted. It does not mean that the planet is not going to continue to change. So we imagine that those that are still maintaining a more third-dimensional experience, as the planet begins to change, will suffer the most as these new transitions are undergone. Simply because some of the more third-dimensional structures and timelines that they are used to are no longer going to be an option or will fall away very quickly. And if the mind, if the consciousness is not open to creating in a new way, in a more free way, which is actually an easier thing to do with the new grid installation, resistance is going to be the factor that holds back humanity. And we believe to some degree that the third dimensional grid system is going to separate from the Earth. So we want to explain this so that you fully understand what that third dimensional grid system was capable of before we answer your question. You see, what the third dimensional grid system maintained was an energetic loop of karma that humans were replaying, coming back to the planet with the same patterning. It was segmented from the universal time grid, meaning that the Council of Light and many others saw so many discordant timeline potentials being created with humanity on the Earth that they were going to affect other planets and star systems. So a disconnection of grid points was made, encapsulating that grid only to Earth. Now, much of the karmic experience that is passed on within your DNA is so dense and discordant in nature because that grid system was in place. But the new grid system, the fifth dimensional grid, we've talked about works quite differently. And because it's in place, we see a dismantling of this third dimensional grid. Now, there is no physical removal of humans from the planet. Every human that is here has a soul, came to the planet with an intention, and has the free will to carry that intention out. What we believe you might see some of, and you may have already begun to see, is some transitioning of souls from the planet who are having a hard time accepting the new energies, meaning that their souls simply made a decision that this planet and the changes and the transitions that were taking place were not suitable to their vibration. And because of that, they will most likely come back through that old grid system to exit through the new grid system into the multi-galactic universe again. But essentially what we believe is that this third dimensional collective of humans is going to become smaller and smaller in number, simply because the vibrations are equal here and you've reconnected as a one consciousness. And fifth dimensional energy is so much higher in speed. We want to give you an example of this as well. When you are in joy or bliss, even if it is simply for 10 minutes, that joy or bliss in your life is a high rate of speed. And when that 10 minutes takes place in your life, If there is something very low vibrational, like a disease, diabetes, let's say, cancer, because that 10-minute of high-speed activity is so much lighter than what that dense relationship is to time, it has such an incredible influence and great or significant potential on changing all of that discordance. So imagine now all these humans who are vibrating at a higher speed and choosing it to create timelines through it. What that means is we have higher vibrating timelines. And if humans simply interact with that, who are third dimensional, as long as they're choosing it with their free will, they will begin to shift as well. And we bring back the previous question. Simply the interaction of humans who have shifted their vibration with others on the planet who are not, are paving the way for change. So we do not see this as a physical shift going on, that there will be two earths or humans necessarily leaving to enter a fifth dimensional experience. We believe it's the difference between choosing to suffer and not suffer. Or we will say it better, we will say choosing to suffer and using your creative energy to live in peace and harmony. That is the shift that you will begin to see.
Could you conclude the session, please?
Yes. As the Council of Light, all of us are in resonance and oneness with you. We are always pleased and honored to be a part of these transmissions. And we offer that as you integrate this information, you allow it to rest within you as it takes place uniquely within your structure to allow new pathways for information to evolve. Many blessings. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay. Oof. Any final questions, thoughts, things I can share? All right, well, it's been a pleasure to connect with all of you today, all of you out there. We have a marathon day today, so please stay. Ethan Fox and Barb Maury will be here next doing energy transfer. And we also have Zayn Daniel, who's here from Chicago. Big treat for us. He's going to be doing an activation later as well. And we've got goodies and treats from Mom's Bars if you guys are hungry and need fuel. So camp out. It's snowing. It's cold. And if you're on Facebook, come back and we'll have another event starting in about 15 minutes.